Céline Evans.
And I'm Chris Evans.
This is Georgia Living Podcast.
Welcome back, Céline. It's good to be back in front of the mic. I think we're still getting the swing of the rhythm of the new year. And we've had a crazy week. It's always like moving really fast. I feel like a little puddle duck. On top of the water, I'm calm, but underneath, those little feet are... I can't believe I just did that on video.
No, keep going.
So
I want to see the little paddle feet.
You want to see the paddle feet? Okay, well, you can't because I'm short, but they're going under the desk. I promise you. We've got a lot to talk about this week. Naturally, we just had winter storm. What is it, Kora?
Kora.
Come through. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the show. But want to start off this episode talking about kind of real estate and some things that you can do to update your home. And we're going to talk about what we've been doing on our home, because I truly do feel like the next few years in real estate are going back in time. So for your home buyers, it's going to become less common to have a polished product where the home is everything you want done to it done.
Well, right now, it's a polished product.
A lot of buyers want that.
Yes.
They want buy house, move in, do nothing, right? It push button, get mortgage. Everybody wants that, but doesn't mean it's the best thing for you.
The cost of rehabbing that is in your mortgage.
It can be.
Pass it along, yeah.
Yeah, and you lose the profit margin because there's always a profit margin. There is always a cost to the time and effort that goes into doing these things.
Yes.
So I really, truly believe that for 2025, if you're in the market to buy a house, the best value, the winners in this market are going to be people who buy the home that needs a little bit of work, and they do the work themselves over time. And that's what we've been doing to our house. Our house was built in 1979. We bought it in 2017. And when we bought it, it was in really great shape. It wasn't updated inside, but the systems and the structure had all had a major overhaul. The old pressboard siding was replaced with hardy plank. The water heater was relatively new. It was less than 5 years old. The HVAC and the roof were all less than 5 years old when we bought it. And ever since we bought it in 2017, we have not stopped working on that house.
It's a Pandora's box, isn't it?
It really becomes that. You know, it started with the kids' rooms. We had to rip up the old carpet that was kind of gross and ignored and just collecting dust.
Right.
We put down hardwood. We designed the kids' rooms. We painted them.
Well, we also had two kids and then one surprise one. So we had to kind of do this.
Added a kid along the way.
Merry-go-round. Yeah, we had to do a merry-go-round with the rooms.
The nursery.
Switch rooms.
The nursery moved to the bigger room where the girls shared it, and the boy moved to the smaller room.
That's a common thing, though, don't you think?
Yeah, I do. Well,
yeah.
I think a lot of people have to have that one room per kid, but we live in a 3-bedroom house, and
people used to live like 4 girls in one room. Yeah, it was crowded, but
my mother grew up in a 3-bedroom house, and there were 11 kids. Like, it might have been a 4-bedroom house. There were 7 kids, not 11.
Bless your heart, Loretta.
But
bless your heart. Oh my God.
You adapt for what you have. And so we've been working on the house nonstop, but a lot of that stuff was modifications and then making it custom to us. We ran gas line to the deck for the grill. We did a conversion from the tank water heater to a tankless.
We made sure that the back addition that was not permitted, permit your stuff, y'all.
Yeah.
Was not falling into the ground because it started to.
There was an addition that was added at some point in the property's life. It used to be a deck, and that deck was then added on to converted to a room.
They built on top of the deck. I didn't know that people did that.
They did. Apparently, in our house, they did, and there was no foundation for it.
No, it was wood on ground, and that was it.
There was wood to ground contact. The foundation was not supportive enough for the weight of the room. So over time, during our course of ownership, we started looking at watching this crack form in our parquet flooring between the kitchen and the addition. And that was a $16,000 job to have that re-jacked up and have a real foundation with footers poured for that.
And big thanks to Dan who fixed it.
Yeah, huge shout out to our good friend Dan, who's no longer doing that. Now he's an Arctic explorer.
Yes.
Helping to settle the Arctic for all of America.
It's like
go
the
Dan.
Arctic version of Dora the Explorer.
So we've tackled lots of projects over time. And are we done? No. But over the last 3 years, we've moved to the interior of the house, fixing one problem at a time. For the lowest cost and highest creativity that we can come up with. And
sometimes it wasn't a problem, though. It was just something that really bothered you, like a color or something like that.
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah, the glass light blue and green tiles that were the backsplash in the kitchen.
Early 2000s.
It was, it felt awful. I couldn't stand that. I wasn't proud of my kitchen.
It wasn't inviting.
It wasn't any place I would want to have people over.
Or you wanted to hang out, right? If
Yeah.
you went somewhere else, you'd just be like, it's a kitchen.
Exactly. But we redid the laundry area. We had one of those refrigerators that would stick out 6 inches from the socket that you can fit the fridge in.
Oh my God.
So instead of replacing that with another fridge, we tore out the cabinet above it and put a built-in Miele fridge.
Okay, this is a common problem in our area, don't you think?
I do. I think
70s
that
homes, they're
older homes.
the space is not meant for the giant refrigerators anymore. No, the modern appliances, they stick out maybe 12 inches.
This one was about 6.5, 7.
That's still a lot. And then you have to go around it. And so the narrow space that you had to walk in already it had half the space. And then you had to turn sideways to get into the dining room.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't think that's practical.
So you just had to make a wider turn when you're coming around. And it's like, I felt like I was a semi-truck, right? You got to turn wide to get around this. Not anymore, because now the refrigerator's flush with the wall. We had a cabinet that was wide enough to fit in a built-in pantry. So we cut out the shelves and put in a built-in pantry and retrimmed it in, adding more storage and giving us the ability to put our microwave in the wall and put a custom hood vent over the range. So, I mean, we've done a lot of little things here and there, but now we're really down to the design, the paint, and you're handling most of this. Like, I am hands off. I did the kitchen with the appliances. You picked out all the colors.
Yeah. Well, we talked about this a little bit in the other episodes too. And I think in real estate, you call that like functional obsolescence or...
Yes, functional obsolescence.
It's like going from, the Victorian gas lighting to electric. That's that weird period in between. You had the dual, gas and electric fixtures.
Well, most homes today have some functional obsolescence in them. Any telephone jack.
Intercom systems?
Sometimes those are still installed sometimes.
Well, for bigger houses. But I'm just saying, like, they don't put them in 3-story houses anymore.
Not really, no.
No.
A lot of that is now just like through Siri or Alexa.
Right. The whole house vacs?
I am still seeing some of those.
Some,
yeah.
But they're not standard.
They're not.
No.
You don't see them in new construction as much anymore, but believe it or not, one of our clients, Brandon, from earlier this year, their new construction 1.2 had a whole house vacuum, if I remember correctly.
Did they use it?
Well, I don't know.
Because I remember being 5 years old and playing with the flap. Going like, what is this? And just like opening and closing it like it was talking to me. And that's just the extent of what we used that for. It's still there.
I never had a house with one of those, so I used the...
I'm sure you would have played with the flap too.
I played with the door stoppers. That was my thing.
You would.
I would. I did. I'm just glad our kids don't. Because I think I got rid of all the springing ones in the house. So there's no fun for that.
They're stiff.
They're all straight now. So these are things that we've done over time. None of them have required us to... permit because it's mostly cosmetic. There's been no structural alterations to the house. And we've done most of the work ourselves.
A lot of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are some times that we brought out the experts, right? We had to, so with
mainly electric. We don't want to get zapped.
Electric and plumbing. So a lot, small electric I've done. Like I've swapped out almost every light receptacle in the house. We put in a lot of smart switches, which give us, it's a smart house.
You
it really
grounded
is.
them?
Yes, our house isn't that old that we don't have like non-grounded electrical.
Some houses do.
But some do. We don't have that problem. So I was able to go through and redo it. But there were a couple of times like our stairs and the landing to upstairs, we had to bring in amped electric on that. Thank you guys, local here in Marietta. They rewired that because that wiring was homeowner special at some point in the property's life. We brought out amped to run power from the crawl space over to
this is when you
greenhouse.
go into a house and you're like, I don't know what this button does.
Exactly.
Or the light switch, and it goes to nowhere, and you're like, okay.
Yeah.
I wonder what's on now, or if it is.
And then plumbing, right? We brought out the town plumber. Shout out to Shane Mahaffey, good friend of mine who owns the town plumber, and they replumbed the whole upstairs plumbing lines from copper to PEX, because what you'll find in Cobb County is that with our water, unless you go with the extra thick copper plumbing, our water will wear through copper in about 50 years, and you'll start to get these little pinhole leaks in copper. It's just natural corrosion from the inside. So when we started seeing those pinhole leaks, once they start, they don't stop. You can either replace with copper or you can swap over to PEX. PEX is really easy to run. I could do that myself in some situations. So we made that switch, replumbed the upstairs before we touched anything on the main level with the ceiling. We lived with a hole in the ceiling for a while. And sometimes that's just, you've got to go through it, right? And we've done that, but it's kind of been like this for every home that we've lived in, and that's how we've been able to build our portfolio. And the whole story's here. So
this
if you
is
want to look
real
at it
life,
from the ground
though,
up,
right? I mean,
this is real life.
We're not talking about entertainment, HGTV, like everything's easy, with the snap.
Oh no, it's a
gonna
pain
be
in the
done,
ass.
right? Like, but people who own houses, they understand that it is a pain in the butt. You have to do things constantly. You have to constantly fix something, one thing after another. And that book has the reality in it.
It does. And so if you want, we'll put the link. You can go and get it on Amazon or Audible. So we've been doing a lot of work, and our main level, and by the way, every time I give an opinion of the design of the interior of the house, I'm wrong. So I just stopped doing it. But Céline has a great eye, and she's incorporated some local history into our house design.
Yeah.
So Céline, I want you to talk about the type of history, and then maybe give a little sneak as to what your latest purchase was.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So I love local history, and being born and raised here, it has a place in my heart. I know that you grew up in Massachusetts, but that has a place in your heart, like the Freedom Trail. You have memories of that. I do not. I have memories of Kennesaw Mountain, of Civil War, of the Great Locomotive Chase, that kind of stuff, which is our local lore. And I believe I've said this before, but Houses with History. Do you remember that TV show?
That was an amazing show.
Oh,
but that really took place where I grew up and where your family originally settled.
Right, in Massachusetts. But what I'm saying is that I liked the ideas that they had, right? Mm-hmm. The ideas of going into a house, looking at it, and then being like, okay, well, where is this house located? What was it used for? What types of people lived here? What were they doing back then? And kind of bring that history back into the home of what it was originally, or when it was originally built. And I thought that was so cool and so much more meaningful than, I don't know, some random art from Marshall's, right?
Oh, yeah.
Not that that's bad, but it doesn't have any tie, right? It doesn't have any special home feeling.
It doesn't tell a story.
That.
Yeah.
Yes. Although it can look cool.
It can.
Yeah.
But it's very shallow when it just looks cool but has no underlying meaning.
Right. So the latest thing that I've done is you hated our stairs.
Couldn't stand them.
They were stained brown, not the brown that our floors were.
Previous owner did this.
And, well, she had a brown scheme.
Yeah.
All of her furniture was brown.
But she did the treads
oversized.
of the stairs to not match anything else in the house. It was a dark brown, and there's honey oak everywhere else.
So, after 7 years of you saying that you hate it, I finally looked at it and said, I'll paint it. If you don't like it that much anyways, I'll just paint it because I'm not going to sand this right now. I have a bird, a macaw right there, right? If I sand everything, he's going to inhale it and probably keel over and die because that's what birds do. They smell something weird and then they're dead.
We would have to take precautions and relocate the bird for a while.
But, you know, in painting the rest of the house, it kind of became the outlier. You didn't notice it at first. And then once you started decorating the rest of the house, you kept on going by these stairs going, wow, that really doesn't match anymore. So I painted it black with the backs, the kick plate. What is it called? The
riser.
The riser. The risers are white. And on the landing area, because our stairs are one of those that don't go straight up, it goes one way and then the other way.
It's like 8 steps up.
Yeah, and then you got that square
flat
area.
landing, and then it goes 8 steps the other way.
So when I decorate, I actually think in a 3D way. I went up the stairs, down the stairs, looked at it from all different angles, and I said, okay, well, my theme here, and we're not talking about like train enthusiasts or anything, but local lore, right? One of the things that I grew up is the Great Locomotive Chase. So that's Big Shanty, which is Kennesaw. And I believe that I've talked to you about this before, but I thought, well, you know, there's a lot more to the Great Locomotive Chase. And what's really cool is that, you know, it went from Atlanta, all the way to Chattanooga. And even though it started in Big Shanty, Kennesaw, we're so close to Kennesaw that it's basically our neighbor. And we used to live there too, in Ackworth, right by the Southern Museum, because it's very close. Ackworth goes into 3 different counties.
Yeah.
So if you look at the top of the stairs looking down, it's like you're going down stairs to a platform to a train station, and there are arrows painted in Victorian, kind of like late 1800s font that says Atlanta this way and then Big Shanty that way, and it also has A&W, Atlantic and Western Railroad, the logo from their actual logo painted on the floor too. I left a little space for, I don't know, a stand or something. We haven't bought it yet, but on top of that stand, I was thinking about displaying a really cool piece of memorabilia that I got, and it's in our mailbox today. And when we get home, we're going to be able to see it.
We'll post some photos with the show notes.
But it is, so the Great Locomotive Chase was when Union soldiers, they stole a locomotive and from Big Shanty, and Confederate soldiers chased them all the way up. They were like going to Resaca. And Disney even made a video or movie out of it. It's called The Great Locomotive Chase. It's one of those that are, you know,
like late 50s, early 60s Disney's where it's really old.
Yeah, like the black and white Mickey, you know, with the tail, kind of like Old Yeller-ish.
Yeah.
Before Old Yeller. But I got a certificate for 50 cents that was printed or used and circulated in April of 1862, the exact same month that this locomotive chase happened.
This is a train ticket.
I think.
Okay.
They did things differently back then. It's not a ticket.
Gotcha.
I can't figure out exactly what it is,
like
but
a punch
card? Well, it's canceled, but this is still a mystery to me. It says 50 cents. It's got handwritten stuff all over it. I I have a feeling it worked. Like in Japan, when you go to a certain train station and you want to go a certain distance, you have a certain amount to pay.
Yeah.
Right?
And you can preload your card with however much, and then it just takes off.
I think because they're 25-cent denominations, and I got the 50 cents. So I think that might have been the way that they handled it, but I don't know because I wasn't alive in 1862. So
you weren't? How dare you?
No, I came along a little bit, a couple years after. So
just a couple.
Yeah.
Well, your great grandfather came along.
My skin looks great for 1862.
Exactly. So, and this kind of goes along with a lot of the other elements that we incorporated in the house. I remember you got a catalog from the Marietta Steelworks.
No, Glover Machine.
Glover Machine Works, that's what it was. And they manufactured the locomotive engines here in Marietta.
Yeah, Glover's a big name, historic name.
So Céline cut out the pages of this catalog and Mod Podged them into this piece of artwork that we display in our living room. And then she tied in a classic train themed shelf that's our coat rack. So these elements can be found all throughout the house. And the way that she designed this, as she said, very 3D. Depending upon where you sit in the house, you have a much different view and you see the little Easter eggs. Yeah. So if you sit in our wingback chair, you can look and see on the stairwell where you're going down, it says like platform number 1, and it's like this little hidden Easter egg that you would never see unless you're coming down the stairs.
And it has the time appropriate arrow for it too, which is the hand.
Yeah, it confused the heck out of me at first.
This because it just looked like a big hand with no partitions.
It was in the middle of being constructed.
It looked like a blob.
You were in the middle of painting when I saw it.
Now it looks like a hand.
It definitely does. So just incorporating this history into the house has really made it feel like the house is bigger than just a house.
It makes you feel like you have roots.
It really feels like our home is tied to our local community right now based off of how you decorated this. Now, it's definitely not going to be everybody's cup of tea. If we went to sell this house right now and a buyer is like, I want agreeable gray and white, I want a white waterfall island and all this shiny stuff. No, that's not our house. But also our house has a lot of character. And for East Cobb being on a half an acre, it's a really unique property.
But it goes to show you that with a little bit of creativity, a projector, a pencil, and some paint, like I've used a combination of Sherwin-Williams and then craft paint too in some places because Sherwin-Williams just doesn't sell the sparkly metallic stuff that I needed.
Yeah.
You can go a long way, and then you don't necessarily have to change the structure of the home, right? Like I'm not busting out doors. I'm not doing any of that. I changed the trim in like one window. But everything else, if I really needed to move, then I can just say paint over it all, sand where you have to. And then it's not that big of a difference, don't you think, than painting a home in 2 coats?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
But you've done some really creative things with paint as well.
Well, thank you.
Our living room, we recently finished. And on top of, we've discussed the living room in a previous episode where
my mom actually listened to the podcast. I didn't know she listens.
Really?
She does.
Nice.
Hi, Mommy.
Hey, Suzanne.
And she came over and immediately has to look up at my ceiling, going, oh, I heard about this.
So Céline went and did a semi-gloss ceiling in the same color that our walls are. Our walls are matte. And then added constellation artwork as seen in Grand Central Station. So tying that train in with classic historical elements. Doing it in a little bit different color. She did a silver metallic instead of gold, which it is in Grand Central. And then she added in little rhinestones to make it pop. And when we had the snow the other day, we opened up the window and just the glare and the light that came through, it just really popped and made the whole constellation sky just really sparkle in the living room. It was really cool.
It was almost like you were looking up at a night sky.
It almost was.
Yeah.
It's about as close as you can get indoors without putting a projector up there.
Yes.
But you mentioned that you need a projector to do this. So explain your process for doing this, because sometimes you're freehanding, but other times you're not.
It's so high tech, Chris. You have no idea. You'll never understand. It's a $50 projector. That's all it is. As long as it focuses and it projects, that's all I cared about. And then you just plug it into your computer. And I don't know,
you just pulled up the image.
Yeah, pull up an image and then trace it. And then sometimes it takes a week. Sometimes it takes a few days. Depends on how long I have. It depends on where it is.
Tripod.
I mean, it's a lot harder to paint on the ceiling than a wall.
Yeah.
Upright, right? So it depends on the complexity. Sometimes it's fine. Yeah.
Well, it's definitely made a huge improvement on our house, and it just shows that if you take some time and effort, it doesn't have to be expensive, right? Because a lot of people, they decorate their house with stuff, right? You go out and you spend $7,000-8,000 on furniture that fits the room and matches perfectly, but then all your house is furniture, curtains, and agreeable gray
stuff.
It's stuff.
One thing that I really do want to harp on is pick a color palette and stick with it. Use those 8 colors everywhere you can. And then that way, if you have a spot that you're fixing, then you can be like, oh yeah, I had a little nick over here. Walk over there and paint over it. It's the same color. It's made things so much easier.
It really has. As a matter of fact, you keep little mason jars in your desk with each color of paint. Just has a little bit in there so that you don't have to go into the garage and pop open the paint can and do all this unnecessary prep work. Mm-hmm. If something gets scuffed up, you just go to your desk, grab a little paintbrush, and just touch it up.
Yeah. It's cut down on a lot of time.
For everybody listening, if you have matte or flat paint, it's a whole lot easier to match that over time and keep it matched than it is to have a semi-gloss or a gloss or an eggshell paint, because the finish is what fades with UV exposure. So if you have a flat or a matte paint, it's just a whole lot easier. We just had our rental property repainted, and my pros told me this for the first time. It was just me learning this, because I went in, we just paid for touch-up, but it looks like they repainted the entire upstairs because it blended in so seamlessly. So if you want to keep it long, like a long period with the same color scheme, that's a great tip.
You would think that the gloss reflects off.
You would think.
But that's weird.
Yeah. So just that... Really impressed with what you've been doing around the house.
Thanks.
Some pointers for everybody going forward is, don't be afraid to get into this stuff, y'all. If you're going to buy a house, if you get one where you can do a lot of the work that's necessary,
make it yours.
You can make it yours. You can do it over time. You don't have to overinvest, because it's just paint. Paint can make such a huge difference in a house.
If you want a 4-foot black and white Boston Terrier in your pink dining room, then you go ahead and do it.
And we'll put a picture of that up too. So
makes me happy.
We recently had, Winter Storm Kora came through, and
okay, the anticipation up to this was intense, don't you think? The whole week leading up to it, because in Atlanta, especially Cobb County, we're on this weird line of snow versus wet, freezing rain, ice. We're always there. Got this it's constantly going back and forth, and that's what makes it really dangerous. So a lot of people pay attention when this can happen, and remember Snowmageddon? You got stuck in it. I walked 13 miles to get you.
Yeah.
After giving birth 3 months before.
January 2014, I had a listing appointment in Decula, Georgia at 10 o'clock. So I'm leaving the house at 9. Nothing started yet. I'm at a kitchen table, and Céline texts me. She goes, you need to get back here. It's starting to stick. So I've got to go all the way down 85. all the way across 285, and then all the way up 75 to the Marietta exit.
So that's about 50 minutes usually with traffic?
With traffic, it would have been like in a 40. Normal scenario, maybe an hour and 10 minutes max.
Okay.
It took me...
With no snow.
With no snow. I got to the Windy Hill exit around 8:30, 9 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
And PM,
yeah.
And I left Tequila at 11 a.m. And then it wasn't going anywhere. So I just had to pull over and park on the side of the road and walk the remaining 8.5 miles back. Celine did about, what?
I did about 13 miles.
13, because you walked towards me and then back.
Yes.
And she was my savior. She's like trekking with these ski poles, and
they were not ski poles, honey.
Oh, they were my hiking. They were my hiking poles,
but they look like ski poles
and,
to Georgians.
She's got like a backpack, and she's got like a thermos full of hot cocoa or something. And fortunately, I had boots in the car because I'm a realtor, so I'm always prepared. And we got home at 1:30 in the morning. It was 11 a.m. to 1:30 a.m. with Snowmageddon. So when this storm was coming, I wasn't going anywhere. As a matter of fact, my Facebook post was, hey, if you're a young agent, don't take that appointment on Friday. Because
I understand, though, because, so many people moved here in 2019, 2020, that they didn't get to experience the last snow that we had, right?
Well, yeah. And
all these new people here in Atlanta, and I don't know. I mean, they don't understand that it's dangerous here. It's not the snow, it's the black ice, it's the accumulation, it's the trees falling down. We did lose our neighbor's tree, and then we lost our camellia in the back, but nothing major other than that.
And that tree was already dead, so fortunately it snapped and it was leaning towards the street.
But we do have this weird line that we ride on, and more often than not, it's not just snow, it's ice.
Yeah. Yeah, ice here is a big issue because they don't properly brine and salt the roads. There's just not enough of that infrastructure in Georgia.
It's been 7 years. I mean, there's no... think about it. Cost versus risk.
Oh, yeah, it happens so infrequently that they keep enough in the state to handle the highways, the interstate traffic. But if you're a local, just stay put. It's only going to be a day or two. Let it melt. Then you go out.
Yes, but you had the most fun, I think. You got your ATV ready, you had your generator all done, and you had enough gas, and you're like, I'm ready, because you're Mr. Prepared.
Oh, I stay ready. I am dad of all seasons. So yeah, I didn't even have to take the generator out. I just knew it was ready to rock, and we had plenty of gasoline at the house.
But with the ATV, so the morning of the snow, which was on Friday, started snowing around 4 a.m., I want to say.
Ish? I got up at 7, and it had just recently started.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
I was still asleep.
maybe 6:30.
You always get up before I do, so.
Yep.
And then you waft the coffee smell in my face.
I did do that. I was holding the cup, and I just go like this.
It woke me up.
and it was the only way to get her out of bed, because if I say get up, I'm just going to be I will be shunned.
I'm grumpy when I wake up. I like sleep.
But yeah, so we got the kids up, got out all the winter gear, and got the tow rope off of the boat, which was great. And then I took the ATV, and we have this little saucer sled that we've had since the kids were young. And I just started driving the ATV up and down the road, pulling kids behind me in this little saucer, and slinging them to each side of the street. We had neighbors that were coming out, yelling at us, "That's awesome!" And
it was really fast too.
Oh yeah, and Archer, our GSP, he was out there with us, running up and down the street, chasing the kids and chasing the ATV.
He ran so much that he nicked his paws.
Yeah, he tore 2 of his nails. He was running so hard and so excited.
He was so happy though.
But yeah, he followed the ATV, and we drove all around the neighborhood, and said hey to all the neighbors. The kids had a blast. They built the giant snowman that's leaning, and the kids are making fun of it, saying it has scoliosis now.
It's still surviving.
It was big, so it's going to take a minute for that one to melt.
I thought that was a standard size. Did you not?
I mean, for me, it's a standard size. It's about as 5...
Tall as you, right?
5 foot Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to tell people how tall you are.
I'm not telling people how short I am. I was taller.
Very short.
I was taller than this, and it was about 5 foot tall. So I'm gonna just keep that there. Yeah. We'll pretend I'm like 5'8", 5'9" for everybody watching on TV. Pretend that. A couple inches short. So when we got done, the dog was done. The kids were done. Everybody was exhausted. Lots of hot chocolate was had by all.
You know what's funny is that in Georgia you don't have the snow and you don't go play out in the snow, so we had to piece together outfits.
No. Did we?
No. I mean, well, they didn't have gloves. They didn't have...
They didn't have gloves. They had everything else.
Like the waterproof gloves, that type of thing.
Correct. Yeah, they didn't have gloves, but they had everything else except one no longer had waterproof boots. Everybody else had waterproof boots. Whether they chose to wear them or not was a different story.
I mean, the neighbor's kid came out in Crocs.
And another neighbor's kid came out in just sweatpants. I'm like,
right.
Cotton kills in the winter. Don't wear cotton. But
Georgia.
So the storm was awesome. Needless to say, having the kids for an extra few days after winter break, we're very happy today to get them back in school. But one of the things I wanted to talk about is after a storm, what do you do with your house? So you always make prep work to homes before storms come, right? If temperatures are going to drop, you're going to want to make sure that you're dripping your faucets, that you're cutting off your water to your exterior hose bibs. But what happens afterwards? You want to go out and do a full inspection, because sometimes you find that damage and you've got to now go and repair it. So I'd encourage everybody, make sure you're doing a roof inspection. Check your gutters. We've seen several gutters down from the weight of ice. You want to ensure that you've got proper drainage and that you don't have water accumulating and standing by the house or your foundation. Check your siding, right? Sometimes you'll have that siding has come loose.
Did you talk about HVACs?
No, not yet.
Oh, okay.
Do you have a point on HVACs?
I just got a phone call that I was looking at, so sorry, I wasn't paying attention to you. But just this morning, we went to a property that had an HVAC that was frozen, and I wouldn't have known. You told me that there was a specific problem with it, right?
Usually. We're doing a tenant move-in this week, so I had to go and open up the property so the cleaners can do the pre-move-in cleaning on it. And while I was just walking around the house, I noticed that there was something odd looking about the AC condenser unit outside. And I walked closer and I looked at the old Carrier, and the whole thing is iced over. And I looked next door at theirs and the neighbors, not iced over at all. And that one's in the shade. Ours is in direct sunlight. So that immediately tells me that there's most likely a Freon leak and the unit is working harder and it overcooled itself. And that's why it freezes.
I would have never guessed that.
I've dealt with this a lot of times, and this is I'm sure there's other reasons why condenser units can freeze up, but most often this is what I've found. So if you ever find that your unit is frozen or super cold, always turn it off. Don't let the unit keep working. Because it's going to continue to work and try and overwork itself, which can lead to burnout. And just call your HVAC company as soon as possible. This is not something that you want to let sit. You want to get the pros there to get that fixed before it does more damage to the internal components. And then, just like I said, schedule any repairs that you have to do it promptly. And if there's any damage, document it. The tree fell for our neighbor. It did end up hitting his car. Fortunately, it was just like the tiny branches on top.
But there was so much ice on his car that it didn't do anything.
Exactly. I was out there helping him with the chainsaw, clearing it up, getting it pushed back from the street. And before we cut anything, I asked him, I said, hey, have you taken any pictures of this yet? Because if we find that there's damage to your car, you want to have that for your insurance. Because if it happens from the home, the homeowner's insurance may cover it. So he took some photos before we moved or trimmed any more branches. Fortunately, as you mentioned, the sheet of ice ice that was on that truck was so thick that the branches that hit it didn't even scratch the paint.
That's funny.
Yeah, that's a little luck going his way is always a good
I love
thing.
Our neighbors.
We have fantastic neighbors.
We do.
So you always want to make sure that you're doing that when before storms. You want to do your pre-storm checklist, make sure you're prepped for it. Post-storm, make sure you go out. If there is damage, document it, contact your insurance company, start the claims process. If you find that you're having difficulty with your insurance company for whatever reason, always contact a third-party public adjuster. You can just go and Google public adjuster near me, public insurance adjuster near me, and you can hire an independent analyst to come out. They will tell you what should or should not be covered and whether or not your insurance provider should be helping you. So just food for thought, always be your own advocate. And if you have any questions, you can always write us. You can reach out, Chris at hshbrands.com. We could either feature your questions on the show. You can reach out to us through Select Realty or on Facebook. All of the links are in the show notes. Let's see. So the spring market's right around the corner. Mm-hmm. And so other than folks who are going to be looking for that fixer-upper that might put them in a good financial position, there's some tips that we always like to share with our consumers and clients as they're coming into the spring market if they're thinking about selling their house.
Hey, the time is now. When all of you have been saying that you're going to wait, it's coming up now.
I don't know how I feel about all these consumer comments. It's like at first, I'm going to wait for the crash and wait for there to be more homes on the market. And then that happened. But then all the people that said they were waiting, they can no longer afford it because interest rates went up. Mm-hmm. And now we're going to be living in this this moderate rate environment for most likely the foreseeable future.
Right, because the jobs report was like 270-something thousand, right? That just came out for last month.
Way exceeding analyst expectations.
I think it was 100-something that they were expecting.
So
I might be wrong.
We're constantly getting mixed economic signals. We're getting positive economic data, and then we're getting positive inflation data, and then positive economic data, and then positive inflation data. It's just...
You should explain why the mortgage rates are rising right now.
So the mortgage rates are rising. There's a couple of reasons why the mortgage rates are rising, but the underlying is that mortgage rates are tied to the 10-year Treasury. If you want to understand why that's going up, just do some research on the bond market, because there's a lot of risk out there with the talk of tariffs and the incoming administration. We're seeing potential signs of cracks in the economy, but that doesn't mean that they'll develop into anything. It just means that there are signals in different areas of the economy that the market is tracking. And the more up in the air things are, the more risk is associated with any given investment. If you don't know what's going to happen and you're not confident in what's going to happen, you assign a fee for risk. So our mortgage rates right now on a historic level, based off of the Fed funds rate, could be as low as 4.5%, but they're not, because there's risk associated with it. So the risk is what's keeping mortgage rates high, because it's kind of, if I can go out and buy a 10-year Treasury bill, which is kind of risk-free as an investment, or I can go and buy a mortgage, those are both kind of risk-free.
So the uncertainty of the future is causing the mortgage rates to be high and held high.
Exactly. So we see this rhetoric from the Fed, right? They've dropped a full point since 2023.
Right, 50 and then 2 quarters.
Exactly. But we haven't seen interest rates come down a full point.
Correct.
Right?
It did for a little bit.
And then it went up.
November-ish, maybe October.
And the mortgage rates were fluctuating when the Fed wasn't moving rates because it's tied to a 10-year. Mm-hmm. And that has a secondary market, and the mortgages are sold in the secondary market. So the mortgages are a product of Wall Street. And the investors that buy those mortgages set the terms for what a loan officer can give you based off of your credit. So
the risk that they put in you.
It's going to be, now, economies don't move fast. Like, you can get a black swan event like COVID. A black swan event is one that you don't see coming. Dr. Taleb wrote a great book on it if you want to go to sleep or you love economics.
That would be you.
Yep. I had to listen to that one on Audible because I never would have read it and stayed awake. But great book. We had that with COVID. Then we had that with him, and that led to inflation, and inflation led us to where we are here today. And then we've had all this stop and go in the real estate market, and it takes a long time to recover from that startup shutdown phase.
Right.
So we're likely not going to see interest rates coming into the 3s or 4s.
What an expensive stimulus gift we got.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. So we're likely not going to see those interest rates coming back down to where you want them to be, which is why it's so important for people to still understand that you can own real estate. You buy, you fix up, you get the equity, you get the sweat equity, and you get the market appreciation over time. Because
when was the best time to buy real estate?
20 years ago. Real estate, it's always been like this. The best time to buy real estate, 20 years ago. Second best time, today. If you have a plan and your plan makes the property a blessing, not a burden. And as long as it falls into that with your personal finances, that is the best way to go. But, I'll just remind everybody, if you're renting, you're paying 100% interest. You're paying somebody else's mortgage. And yeah, it might be a little bit more expensive to buy a house today. But at the start of that loan, you're putting a little bit away for yourself every month.
Until time travel is invented, you can't go back in time.
No.
But you've only got today.
That's actually part of my investing strategy. If I can buy a house today for the same price that it was in like 2020.
Oh, you mean going back in time?
I look at that as buying time.
No, I'm talking about
I know.
Sci-fi, TARDIS, Doctor Who.
They go back in time, right? Insert sci-fi audio.
I've seen a couple of episodes, but I'm not really the type that watches Doctor Who. It looks fun.
I watched that a long time ago. It's been decades since I've seen that show.
Know. I mean, hey, if you're into it.
So other than some budget, so if you're getting ready for the spring, if you're planning on selling, you're going to make a lateral move, but your new payment is probably going to be higher unless you're going to buy in cash. There are some budget-friendly tips, fixes that can add value to your house. One is a fresh coat of paint. You can do this yourself. For a few $100s, you can paint the whole house on the inside, just as Celine's done. You don't have to go crazy and trace, scenes from Grand Central Station on your ceiling like we have. But a roller and some paint, high quality paint, that goes really far. Minor kitchen or bathroom updates, and landscaping improvements for curb appeal. Mow your lawn. Put down some fresh pine straw. Make the house spiffy. Pressure wash it. Clean it. It's amazing what a good cleaning can do.
I think 3 of the best upgrades we've had were new paint, right? And then keeping it painted because
keeping the paint clean.
Darn toddlers.
And the dog.
And the dog. They touch every wall because that's how they balance. They just hold on to that. Mm-hmm. And then the hot water heater, the tankless one, that was one of my favorites. And then the other one, I gotta say it's the dishwasher. We go through that thing 3 times a day. Yeah,
that was a big upgrade. We went from a really noisy Whirlpool to a Bosch Series 8, and you don't
have to look at the light to see if it's on. Yeah, because it's so quiet.
That was money well spent. I mean, the things that you use every day, I'm a huge advocate of not skimping on. And then there's some basics for staging. You want to use some light airy decor to reflect some spring vibes as we're coming into the spring selling season. And
you mean get rid of your Christmas decor because it shouldn't be there.
Well, I mean, not
in spring.
It's January 13th. That shouldn't be there anymore.
Okay, that's debatable for many people.
Epiphany came and went. It's done. You don't leave it up year round.
Okay, but in spring, at least by spring, you should have it put up.
You should have it put up now. That's not up for debate.
All right.
But the reason why you want to use light and airy decor is because light colors make the room feel bigger. It feels more spacious.
It does, but also at the same time, having one color palette and painting all that, even if they're dark colors in that, it makes it feel like one continuous area.
Yeah.
That way. So I don't think you absolutely have to have light. Now, is light selling? Yes. That's what people want, right? Because they want to decorate with stuff. But if you are not planning on moving, if you're going to stay there, go for it. Go for more bold colors, but keep it to where you're not doing just one room, one color, and then the rest of it white.
Yeah.
Like, that cuts off that entire area. Make sure that everything ties together and it feels like one giant room. I love that.
It is a really nice thing. I mean, everybody's decor is going to be different. Sometimes you may want to have a room that feels like it's isolated from the rest of the house if it's a library or an office. But to go with that, so light and airy, it's going to feel larger when somebody's in. Another thing, declutter and depersonalize. So this is one of the most commonly asked questions is, Chris, what do I need to get rid of? Generally speaking, you want to remove all family, personal, or religious items from the house. Now, if you have one wall that is all family photos, or you have one section of one room that you have a few family photos out, that's fine. But what you want is when a buyer comes into your house, you want them to envision themselves living there. And if they're looking at your face, it's going to make it harder for them to envision themselves living there.
Oh, yeah. They feel like an intruder.
And now when it comes to like decluttering and like making the space feel larger, Céline, I'd love you to chime in on what you did with the living room and the furniture layout.
I threw it all away. I'm just kidding.
How you designed that furniture to allow for movability throughout the living room.
Yeah. I had one of those living rooms, or I have one of those living rooms where you can either have a couch facing a certain way to where it creates a hallway. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah. Like, the back of the couch.
The back of the couch is the hallway wall, you know, and then you have to walk through it. That to me cut off all the juju and all the feng shui that I was like, I can't do this. I'm coming in here and then all of a sudden I see a wall in front of my face, right? I wanted something to flow and to actually like feel like you can run in without stopping and hitting yourself on that back of the couch. So it's not very scientific. The way I design is my gut feeling, literally. If I look at it and it makes my stomach cringe, then I don't do it. If I'm okay with it, I'm like, yeah, all right. Good juju right here. We're good.
Absolutely. And
I don't think it's very complicated.
So the furniture size has scaled down. There's more pieces, but it's smaller furniture. There's a love seat and then 3 standalone chairs. And instead of a coffee table, Céline put a Singer sewing machine from the 1800s as the centerpiece, and she keeps a little runner on that with some fresh flowers and a tray. And
yes, I do sew with it. Her name's Pearl, 1899, I believe.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
Part of the collection that you have.
I don't know why our dog likes to lick the treadle part, though.
He's weird.
Like, he doesn't go for the leather. He goes for the cast iron.
He's a pointer. He's weird.
Ugh.
Speaking of pointers, this is a great shirt that my wife got me for Christmas. I think I mentioned it on a past episode. I'm wearing it today. This is my pointer shirt.
I also got you a pointer mug.
I can't wait for that to come in. So then we want to talk timing. So we're getting the house ready. We're doing the curb appeal, some fresh pine straw, your pressure washing, do your paint touch up. If you've got rotted trim, just go ahead and fix that.
Such an eyesore.
Yeah, look at your house as if you were going to buy it yourself.
And guilty, I do have some. I really do. I haven't gotten to it yet.
We're doing a lot at the house, and we're going section by section. We haven't done the exterior yet.
Yeah.
We'll get there. But then we talk about timing. All right, Chris, do I take it off for the holidays and wait until January, or what do I do? All right, here's the rundown. This depends on what you plan to do as far as a real estate transaction. If you're going to sell and then buy again in the same market, it doesn't matter what time of year you do it, because it's a lateral move. You want to maximize the most? Great. Sell it in May or June. Statistically, for FMLS, those are the highest sale price months of the year. But guess what? You're buying at the height of June, May, right. June. So you're selling at the height, but you're also buying at the height. It's
buy low, sell high.
Lateral move for most people.
Yes.
So it really doesn't matter the time of year that you plan to take to market. Now, there's more buyers to choose from. That's one of the reasons to sell in spring. So you have more people who are in the market because they're not selling around the holidays. They're not buying around the holidays.
But you can get the best deals during the holidays too, and you get the worst deals if you're a seller during the holidays.
But again, lateral move. Mm-hmm. If you're selling during the holidays, you're going to get the worst terms. But when you buy during the holidays, you get the best terms as a buyer. So it doesn't matter what time of year you sell, unless you're not planning to buy immediately. If you're planning to sell your house, go travel the world for 6 months pre-retirement, and then come back and relocate somewhere else, at that point, it makes sense to sell.
Most people are doing lateral, though, because whenever I look at contracts, maybe half of them in the past month or so have the contingent sale exhibit on there, which means that they have to sell their home before they can buy this one that you're trying to sell them. So I don't think you're far off.
But if you don't own a home currently, say you're a renter and you're a first-time home buyer and you want to get in the market, get in now. January has the lowest price of the year for closings. Everything contracted in December closes in January, lowest price of the year. You can get in now, early spring, January, February, March, get your pre-qual done, take advantage of the post-holiday sellers. They may have had their property on the market pre-holiday. Post-holiday now, they may have adjusted the price upwards. You can come in and negotiate on that and get a good deal before all the buyers come in later this spring. Buyers will come in late March into April. Think Easter. After Easter, the selling season is on full blast. And then it will remain high and competitive through September. Really August, but then September, October, we still see a lot of activity before the slowdown in November. Mm-hmm. The way our market works here in Georgia, it's basically year-round at this point because of the limited inventory and the demand from people relocating from other states. And, God help the people in California, but I can imagine that there's going to be lots of relocations to Georgia after that. Just because the industry, it's right there in Hollywood. So that industry is tied to Georgia. I can imagine that there's going to be a lot of people coming here. Oh, you mean
the film industry and entertainment?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because those fires are horrific, but
they have an insurance problem too.
They have a massive insurance problem.
Yeah. And
they're going to be reeling from this for years.
It's unspeakable. Just the images that are out there. It's crazy.
So you can use that timing to beat the rush or prepare for the rush if you're a seller. And you can try and attract motivated buyers early in the season. Now, here's what 2025 is going to bring you that other years haven't. We started this midway through last year. This is the new way to sell real estate nationwide. If you're a buyer, you're going to hire your agent before you start touring homes. That's just the way it's working right now. You're going to negotiate what their fee is. And by the way, your agent doesn't have to reduce their fee. A fee being negotiable means that you can go out and find anybody who's willing to shop a lower fee. There are lots of real estate agents who had high costs before this shift happened. After the shift happened, their costs did not go down, so they can't come off of their rates. But there are agents and firms out there that will negotiate. And if you say you want to negotiate, you just ask them, are you negotiable on your rate? Interview, hire somebody that wants to work with you. By the way, we are negotiable here. Throwing that out.
But if you also think that an agent is only there to open a door,
then you're probably not
better suited elsewhere.
or you're going to get exactly what you pay for, and you're probably not going to be willing to pay much.
Yeah. There's a lot more that goes into it.
Yeah, we're guides.
Yeah.
We know the market in and out, and our job is to give good advice. And there are some investors and clients that are very experienced and very knowledgeable about this market, and they still defer to us on a weekly and sometimes daily basis for advice and insight into their deals and contracts. And that's our job, and we're willing to do it. But we at Select Realty, we work for the amount of work that we put into it. So we charge based off of how much work we have to do. Hire your agent. When you tour a house, there's just a high likelihood you're not going to know if the seller is going to be willing to pay that agent out of their proceeds. You can. Now, you're like, Chris, oh my God, well, I only have enough for a down payment and my moving expenses saved up. I can't afford to pay my agent out of pocket. That's okay. We work with you on that. If you're in a situation like most people are, nobody wants to come out and pay an extra $15,000 when they can roll that into the loan. Like, it's been done for ages. It's been done that way because it's out of the seller's proceeds. So you're just buying the house, seller covers that cost. Now, nobody wants to do that. Nobody wants to spend an extra $15,000 that they could leave in their investment account or in their savings account working towards their retirement. It's a lot of money. You can instruct your agent to write an offer where if the seller doesn't pay for that, it doesn't work out financially for you. And you just say, well, I put my best offer forward and it didn't work out, and now I'm just going to look for a different house. There's not just one house for everybody.
So I'll tell you what I've been seeing in real life.
Yeah.
Because that's theoretical, right?
No, not really.
Yeah, it's a way to do it. But what I have been seeing is that the buyer is paying.
There are times where the buyer is paying. Usually it's about 0.5% of the buyers coming up with
I've
anything.
seen half and then one.
Have you?
Yes, and that just speaks because I notice those things whenever I see paperwork come across my desk, and it really tells you that if you want that property, you're going to get it, right? Our market is still pretty tight. Even though we have more choices, these people are looking for that finished product. So when they find that perfect one, they're going to pay that 1%. And I've seen it happen, and those deals close.
And those really are unicorn deals. Like it's a house that these buyers have been looking for a while.
You mean, yes.
Like it is a very specific house. It's not one where you can go into a neighborhood and you have like 4 homes from the same builder. They're all the same layout and same square footage.
No.
And it's cookie cutter. When you have a buyer that's paying a commission right now, it's usually because the seller knows the demand for that product, that house. And the seller is keeping all of the...
It has to be a good one.
It has to be. But
I have seen it like 3 or 4 times in the past 2-3 months.
No, I can totally believe it under those situations. But if you're in a neighborhood and that neighborhood has lots of homes to choose from, you're probably going to be able to negotiate your fee for your buyer's agent with the seller to cover. As long as you're not trying to undercut them, you're paying a fair price. The home is appraising at or near where your ask is. It's all still very reasonable, and most people know that they're going to pay. Now, here's what you don't want to do. You don't want to go directly to the listing agent. If you're a buyer and you are trying to not pay a commission, you can do this. I would advise not doing it if you are unless you are super experienced in the industry.
Well, that was very common in 2019, 2020. People going straight to the listing agent.
It's become more common today, I think, after the changes, because there's a lot of people that are afraid to hire and sign with an agent before they find the house. So there's all sorts of nightmare stories about buyers getting caught into nightmare scenarios because they either went directly to the builder or they went directly to the listing agent before choosing an agent. And then the builder, the agent don't want to work with them because you came in after the transaction. As a listing agent, I'm paying a buyer's agent, or my seller's paying a buyer's agent to find us the buyer. A builder is paying a buyer's agent to find them the buyer. If we have already found the buyer, why would we pay another agent anything? After the house is found, if you want to hire an agent, that's going to be at your expense in any scenario where I'm a part of that transaction. Find your agent before you find the house. Let them do their job. Put them to work. Let them earn a living. But you don't go to the listing agent because that listing agent does not have your interest at heart. There was a situation that happened last year with one of our agents at the firm. The buyer fortunately did not go directly to the listing agent. The buyer was using our agent. The agent was, they had negotiated for all of these repairs to be done by licensed professionals. The seller tried to skimp out on all the repairs. They didn't use a single licensed professional. As a matter of fact, they used, one of the companies they used for repairs is not even headquartered in our state. And they weren't able to provide the proper documentation. Well, the listing agent wasn't going to lift their fingers on this. They were just like, oh, we complied. Here's all the documentation. And then that was it. The buyer's agent, our agent that works here at Select Realty, was able to go to the broker. This involved me as well. We went to the broker over that agent, and we basically laid it down and said, you're all in default of this contract. Either you're going to actually pay for the repairs to be done properly, or you're going to pay our commissions because you've defaulted, and a defaulting party pays for the commissions that would have been owed. And our buyer can decide whether or not they want to sue you for the damages and for possibly specific performance in the future, which really that's not a suit that happens a lot. But we were able to then get the work that was completed, was already done and paid for. We got an additional $10,000 for our buyer because the listing agent was just not operating in the best interest of anybody in the transaction. That's more common than you think. If you're a buyer going direct to the listing agent has the seller's interest in heart, not yours. So it's just some food for thought as you're going into this 2025 season. If you're looking for an agent, we'd love to be a part of that conversation and that decision process. And if we can help in any way, shape, or form, please let us know.
Hey, let's close out this episode with some local news.
I love it.
You found an adult sports league registration that's open.
Yeah, Cobb County.
Yeah.
We'll put the link in the show notes. Cobb County has softball, basketball, volleyball. They have pickleball. There's a bunch of stuff that's going on. Registrations are open now. We'll put the link in the show notes. So if you want, you can go and take part of some adult sports and show your kids where they got it from. What else is going on, Céline?
Mazzy's Pub.
Oh my gosh, I was reading about this.
So aren't they the Jets headquarters for fans?
I have no idea. I'm not a Jets fan.
They're off of Roswell Road, and
yeah, this is the East Cobb location for Mazzy's.
Yeah, they've been there for a long time. It was where the VA used to be. It's
a great little pub. We've been there a lot of times. Go shoot some pool, get something to drink, watch a game on a Saturday.
Yeah.
Well, turns out there was a local who, I don't know the story behind this, but he wasn't too happy with the management over there. So this guy, he was arrested for threatening to shoot the manager. And I guess he shows up at like 3:00 in the morning on January 3rd.
Wait, are they even open at 3:00?
I think they were shutting down. And he had pointed a laser pointer at the door, pretending it's a red dot. He made some sort of insightful comment, like, find yourself in the crosshairs or something like that. He had a shotgun on him. He left a couple of shotgun shells at the front entrance of the restaurant. And so he was arrested. He's currently being held Cobb County without bail for threatening comments.
This is like the local popcorn.
Right? Yes. Like, just sip your tea, get your popcorn, start chewing around. But yeah, that was
maybe the holidays got to him. I don't know.
Maybe he had kids at home for 2 weeks. I don't know. Oh, no, there's no excuse for that.
No.
All right. Well, I think that just about wraps it up for this episode of Georgia Living.
Yep.
Thank you so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, please leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Like and subscribe to YouTube and share this with somebody who lives here in Cobb or Cherokee or North Fulton where we serve. We'll see you next week.
Bye. Who do you want to win, Notre Dame?
Oh, it's Notre Dame in Texas, right?
No, Texas is out.
Texas is out in Ohio State?
Penn State.
Penn State?
Yeah. Nittany Lions.
I'm going to go for Notre Dame. I think I'll root for Notre Dame.
Well, if we lost to them, then I want to see them actually win.
Yeah,
like, okay,
I'd rather
we lost to a national champion versus
lose to the champion than lose to the second place, right?
Yeah.
There we go. Go Dogs. We'll see you next season.